Video, Purple Political Talk here, and today we're going to be going through the 2020 presidential election and looking at how Joe Biden is getting close to a landslide and how he might actually just get there. So let's just begin. And I'm just going to start by filling in our regular swing states, and these states would not change. And honestly, I'm not putting all the regular safe states. What I'm actually doing is that I'm going to start with our regular ones, and then just add on to the states that might become in a safe margin when we see a best case and landslide scenario for Joe Biden. And I'm going to talk about individually how each state might get there. Right now, like our safe states, if Joe Biden has a landslide, it's going to stay pretty solid for these states, and it is highly likely that he would win this by safe margins in his landslide margins. I think other places we could add to this would be states like Nevada and Colorado, Virginia, and New Hampshire, and maybe the state of Minnesota. So all the states won for Hillary Clinton, I think, could go to Joe Biden in his landslide scenario. And looking at it, we can say that the only way we could see states like Virginia, Colorado, Nevada, Minnesota, and New Hampshire going to Joe Biden by a safe scenario, which would be 15 points or more, it would be if he has a good running mate that could push up margins in these areas. Maybe in Colorado and Nevada, it's someone like Michelle Lujan Grisham. Maybe in Minnesota, it would be someone like a Kamala Harris. Or maybe in the state of New Hampshire, it could be someone like Elizabeth Warren. But these states, for them to go to Joe Biden by their fullest potential, you would have to see something like that happen. Now, we finished our safe states for the Democratic Party. But where Republicans getting safe states if Joe Biden goes and wins by his best case scenario, which he's looking like he's pretty close to doing? Well, I mean, the states that were safe are going to be pretty similar. I would add just a couple of different exclusions, I guess. And this would be the map we would start with. We would start with most of the South going to the Donald Trump campaign, but still, Joe Biden has chances, and actually, margin-wise, he's going to get closer in a lot of these southern states. And that's honestly going to happen if he chooses someone like maybe Val Demings and other like money and support from the black community. All of those things start making domino effects. One person starts supporting you, that person tells their friend, and their friend tells their grandpa tells their grandpa's friend tells their grandson. All these different things are moving along society, and if you have strong support from a community, that is great for you, and high turnout will come to you. And if Joe Biden wants to get a hold of the South, it's going to be with strong margin. So I'm going to fill in this as it was a regular prediction, but going through how Joe Biden might go out and win by landslide margins. So, first of all, the states in the South, for the most part, in a landslide margin for Joe Biden, would be the only states that would go by likely margins for Donald Trump. These would probably go in his landslide margin by 10 to 15 points, which is pretty good for a Democrat. And if he gets it super down, maybe 7 points in South Carolina, but in the state of Mississippi, I really don't see it going any more than maybe 10 points. So those two states, although they might get closer, they might tighten up in Joe Biden's margin when we're talking about his best case landslide scenario and realistic landslide scenario. These two states would just narrow up. They wouldn't go to Joe Biden, perhaps, but they would go a little bit less for Donald Trump. And as we go through and fill in the rest of these states, we're going to see the same kind of trend. Let's just fill in the Democratic likely states if Joe Biden goes on and wins by landslide margins. At this point, if Joe Biden were to win by landslide margins, I see the whole Rust Belt in the states that Donald Trump won, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, going to him by around 5 to 10 points. Which, I mean, maybe he already has that in the state of Michigan where he's running out the numbers. But Joe Biden could easily win those seats by likely margins. And in looking into his realistic landslide best case scenario, I mean, we're going to be looking at that he could win states like Arizona by 10 points. Which, who would have thought when John McCain was running for president that in 2020, a state like Arizona would be going for the Democratic Party by 10 points. And honestly, that's going to be something that we're going to end up seeing maybe. And if things continue to develop as they're going and unraveling for the president, then we might be able to see something like this happen, and then kind of the demise of the Trump campaign. And in all honesty, I think if there's 4 states that I think could go easily for the Democratic Party and flip, it would be these states. And the rest of these states are going to narrow up, maybe go narrowly to the Republicans or narrowly to the Democratic Party. And I think this is going to be our starting point as we move into the lean margins. So at this point, I think in Joe Biden's best case scenario, main 2nd congressional district, I don't see it flipping. It possibly could, but I would not say it would flip because one, we don't have enough polling data. And along with that, we also must consider that these people, they're conservative. And maybe Joe Biden isn't their type of candidate. Maybe if they choose someone like Elizabeth Warren that could move that area of the country massively, she could get those votes out, maybe we could see a flip. But as of right now, I would put it in the lean Republican column. And another state I would feel comfortable putting in that is the state of Texas. I feel like the state of Texas would narrow up massively, and I think this would be into the lean margin where it would be around 1 to 2%. And in Joe Biden's best case scenario, he's going to get super close, but he's not going to end up winning the state of Texas. The reason for that being is that, remember that state of Texas is a very complex political unit. You have a lot of Democrats and a lot of liberal people, as well as you have a lot of Republicans and a lot of conservative people, which at the end of the day, it does really matter. Because remember, you're looking at a state where demographics are favoring the Democratic Party. So yeah, it's going to be narrowing up, but we're probably going to see it in a best case scenario, same type of race that we saw with Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz. And if this ends up happening, I mean, it's going to have to be some extreme campaigning from Joe Biden and very good fundraising and spending in the state of Texas. And I think it's not going to be able for him to win, but he's going to get close. Which, I mean, if you get this close in 2020, you might be able even closer in 2024. We saw this in the state of Arizona. Democrats got close, they get closer and possibly win. And now I'm going to go with the Democratic states in the lean margin. If Joe Biden is able to run up these margins, take the country by storm, and things continue to unravel, states like Florida, states like North Carolina, states like Ohio, these 3 states, I have a feeling that Joe Biden can sweep and win these states in his best case scenario. And I think the best way to win those 3 states would be by picking someone like Kamala Harris, or maybe a Val Demings perhaps, or Keisha Lance Bottoms, where you see these African American vote, those go up, and you get a lot of the suburban support in the state of Florida, maybe some more hard-working white working class voters in Ohio, and general kind of a mix of everything in the state of North Carolina. And these states, I mean, I say the state of Florida could easily go to Joe Biden, and if it's in a best case scenario, it's probably going to go by a lean margin. And remember, in best case scenarios, we're also talking about realistic margins. It would be like a couple hundred days from today if we say that Joe Biden's going to win in Wyoming by a landslide. And just looking at the facts, I mean, with the state of North Carolina and the state of Florida, those states, I mean, they have hard Republican bases as well. They do have very hard and solid Democratic bases. So honestly, Joe Biden able to run up those margins, I mean, we could easily see him win in the state of Florida and North Carolina and Ohio by 2 to 5 points. Now, the last couple of districts, the district and then the last 2 states left are the district of Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, as well as Iowa and Georgia. So let's just start with Iowa. Joe Biden's doing, if he does very well here, we could see him winning narrowly. I don't see him winning by a blowout, but perhaps winning by a comfortable margin. If we're seeing someone like Theresa Greenfield, who's running for Senate here, leading by around 3 points in the latest polls, we could probably see Joe Biden win here. It's a mixture of African American support and white working class voters in the state of Iowa. And essentially, if he can get that support there, we can see him win there. And in Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, if Joe Biden can push enough, he could probably win there. It would be a little bit of support, but he probably has enough support to go out and win. And the last state we're going to fill in is the state of Georgia. And in a best case scenario, I'm a little torn of what to do with this state. Because one, on the first side, we also have to think, yeah, there's heavy African American populations in the state of Georgia. Yes, there's heavy Republican populations in the state of Georgia. But when you mix those two together, we're going to have to see who comes ahead. In his best case scenario, where he runs up these margins, I could see him winning the state of Georgia narrowly. I'm talking about maybe a couple thousand votes, 7,000 votes, 12,000 votes, 20,000 votes, that type of margin, and narrowly winning the state of Georgia. Because honestly, if we're talking about, for example, let's put it like this, average performance, it would be my regular prediction. Put 75% performance, you add a little more states. And if it's 100% performance for Joe Biden, we see heavy sweeps around the country. So I guess this map shows and depicts how Joe Biden would do in his best case scenario. And who knows, maybe we could see margins come down in states like Missouri, in states like Indiana, and go down to similar margins where the state of Mississippi and South Carolina are. But at the end of the day, if we're seeing a race that's going heavily for Joe Biden, only time will tell, and we would see a map that would look like this. And then just to make it more not best case scenario, we just keep away taking states, starting with the ones in kind of grayish colors, then we're going with a light blue, then with a darker blue, and then with the absolute dark blue if it's a huge blowout for Donald Trump. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please give it a thumbs up. And like and subscribe if you're not yet. So there's many great things coming to this channel. And remember guys, if you want to get a shout out or do you want to get a personal class of how to make an election night, there's a Patreon link down below, and you can donate to the channel, and I can teach you how to make election nights and other content. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and goodbye.